I'm Greg Jarrett for FoxNews.com. The Defense Department facing mounting criticism for its handling of child abuse allegations involving Afghan commanders, including revived claims that U.S. soldiers were instructed to look the other way when Afghan troops and officers were sexually abusing boys. Here now to weigh in, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, former Congressman Alan West. Always a pleasure to speak with you.
Good to be with you, Greg.
To the point of these officers, and in one case Green Beret, told to ignore crimes and human rights abuses. What do you think?
Well, I think it's very troubling. The motto of the Special Forces of the United States Army is de oppresso libre, to liberate the oppressed. And when you think about the mission of the United States soldier, it is to bring freedom and opportunity and hope. And I spent 2.5 years in Afghanistan, and we did run into this instance. They were called Chai boys or T-boys, and we even had an Afghan battalion commander that was forcing some of the young enlisted soldiers to engage in sexual acts by gunpoint. And we reported that up the chain of command, and he was properly relieved. But when you see now that we have American soldiers, a Special Forces Captain Brian Ross, I believe is his name, and Sergeant First Class Charles Martland, who basically were punished because of the actions they took against an Afghan police officer who the mother reported was abusing her son. And then, of course, not only had he abused the son, he beat the mother when he found out. He took his case to American officials, and they punished our soldiers because of the actions they took. There's something about the moral code that our men and women have,
right,
and we have to make sure that cultures don't impact our moral code. But another key point, American taxpayer dollars are going toward the funding of the Afghan troops. Do we really want to be funding individuals that are basically pedophiles?
Well, if the reports are true, and it goes beyond just military personnel being told to ignore these instances of child rape and so forth, but they're literally being punished, as you were mentioning a moment ago. If that's proven true, what should be done about it?
Well, there needs to be an investigation. We need to find out who instituted this policy. And there's no doubt that people are being punished because Captain Ross has come forward and Sergeant First Class Martland is about to be involuntarily separated from the Army because of a record that was put into his file, an adverse action, because he was kicked off, he was taken out of his duties and responsibilities on the Special Forces A team he was on.
Help me to understand this. There is a statement to Fox News that American service members are not required to report child rape. Then it goes on to say, but the military expects that any suspicions of sexual abuse are immediately reported up the chain of command. How do you make sense of that?
Well, you don't make sense of that. And let's talk about another anecdotal case. Greg Buckley Sr., who is from right here in New York City, who lost his son, Greg Buckley Jr., because of one of these Afghan T-boys that were brought onto the forward operating base in Helmand Province, where the Marines were. And there was a suspicion about this police chief having dual allegiances to the Americans, also the Taliban. Well, this young T-boy went into the gymnasium and shot 3 U.S. Marines. So obviously, the whole purpose for that young boy being there on that base was to be sexually assaulted and abused by this police chief. Why wasn't that taken care of? Why was the Marine chain of command saying you cannot have this type of practice on our forward operating base?
All right, the statement to Fox News was American service personnel are not required to report these kinds of abuse cases. Doesn't President Obama need to immediately change that policy? Because if American personnel don't report it, clearly Afghan authorities will never take action of their own against these officers.
And we're complicit. And again, the thing that's part of this complicit action and behavior is that American taxpayer dollars are going to, sustain these forces, being the Afghan Army, the Afghan police, in many cases probably paying for the salaries of these individuals. But what we see on the ground is that here we are, American troops supposedly coming to bring a better day, a brighter future, and we're part of this. I mean, what does that say to the Afghan people?
Very sad chapter. Colonel Alan West, good to see you. Thank
Pleasure.
you for being with us.
Thank you, Greg.